Or package from China. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. So in this video we are going to take a close look at something I was waiting for a very long time. So this was the arcade box or something like that. So when it comes to these game boxes, it's going to be quite interesting because they are bringing out a lot of them. Like first we had the Pandora box and the handhelds, and now we're going like all wild with these game systems. So they call this thing the arcade box. Like that is really creative. So I'm curious of what this thing can do, but also like what are we going to get in the inside? Because when you're looking at the device, I'm going to get myself this Super Console X vibe. And for the people who didn't see a video about the Super Console X, it's basically like an Android box with an MELEC on it. What I do like about it, to be honest, is this picture. Did they made it themselves or did they rip something off? Who will tell? So over here we're going to get an HDMI cable. And let's see what we're going to get here. And this is the arcade box instruction. Okay, so I say they did a very nice job explaining how everything works. For example, how you need to reconfigure your controller. But what you're going to get in this kit or in these kits, because they sell all kinds of versions like this, we're going to get 2 controllers. We're going to get, of course, the power supply that we're going to need. The HDMI cable I'm already showing you. Then we're going to get ourselves the fake PlayStation controls like always. And hey, this time we're going to get one with a wire. Okay, we'll explain because this thing was quite cheap to buy. But how does it feel? But most important, how does it smell? Ah, smell enormous chemical and I like it. But this is like the really cheap to the cheap editions. I have seen my share of PlayStation 2 controller knuckles, but these are like the really low quality. Ooh, I almost forgot we're going to get the rubbery feet that we need to put them here ourselves. Okay, so when it comes to the game boxes, Super Console X, arcade box, how you want to call these things, we're going to get all kinds of variations, wireless controllers, wired controls, even with weird Super Nintendo controls. So the controllers they're going to get mostly are pretty damn awful, and to be honest, I don't get it. And what do I mean what I don't get? Like, if the controls are so freaking awful, like why even bother giving them? You can get yourself maybe an Xbox 360 controller. Most of the time these work, or maybe an Xbox One. And there are like these Chinese versions that look like a PlayStation 4 controller. That is also very nice and not very expensive. But it gives the people an option, because these things are freaking awful. But first, let's do a quick overview of the box itself. What can we do with it, but also what are the connections? Because that is also a question. Sometimes we don't going to get enough USB ports, and that is also quite annoying because you need to use a USB hub. So here we're going to get 2 USB ports. Here we're going to get the CF card or the SD card. Better said, this is a 64 gigabyte. And they are using like this weird brand or non-brand at all. At the back we're going to get here the on and off switch. That is something that is not common with these things. An input for the power supply, HDMI out, an RG45. This is just basically if you want to update the software itself. And we're going to get a jack out. I can say like I tried with Super Console X. These things don't work most of the time with MELEC if you want to go all retro on a CRT or something like that. So here it says ready input 12 volt and output HDMI and AV. Ooh. Okay guys, so let's do a wicked nerdy time. So this thing has an AIM-Logic S905 chip inside. That's basically a quad-core or ARM Cortex A53. Comes with a Mali 450 MP3 GPU that runs on 750 MHz, or that's basically what the wiki page says. Then we're going to get 1 GB of storage, 64 GB of SD card and 1 GB of RAM. So basically this thing is, so far I can see, exactly the same like the Super Console X. Okay, but how do you connect it? It's quite simple. We're going to plug in the HDMI cable over here. Then we're going to plug in the 12 volt power supply. And of course, in the first part of this video, we'll use the crappy PlayStation 2 chemical controller. Plug it in one of these USB ports, and that's it. You're ready to go. Let's turn it on, and let's power on the monitor. But take consideration, because of the old specifications, you can only run up to 3.9 MELEC. It's a little bit of a bummer because the newer edition of the firmware will give you so much more in return when it comes to compatibility with emulators and of course new features. So when booted up, this is what we're going to get. Just the basic menu like with the Super Console X. So MELEC, need to take consideration, this is just a software you can basically like download yourself, add yourself the emulators and the files that you need. So you can basically build it yourself, maybe cheaper. But this is just a plug and play solution, so what you can play with this thing is like pretty damn impressive. So you can play the old school stuff like Sinclair, Atari, Commodore 64, Amstrad, CPC, but there is also so much stuff you can play, Neo Geo, Arcade, but what we're going to test out is the systems like Atomic Wave, Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation Portable. This thing has so much to offer, but take consideration that some of the boxes are having like really old and low specs, so we will occur some issues when it comes to emulation performance, and of course, are some of the games even playable? Alright, so first let's try N64, because this is a system that had a lot of issues with these low power devices, like with the Super Console we have tried here on the channel. But if you just want to play it on native resolution, no fancy upscaling, this will run just fine. But take consideration, a lot of games that are more demanding will not run very well or at all. Okay, so because of the low power chip, and it's not a good combination with the SSPP emulator. Games like Metal Slug and two-dimensional game will run just fine with some glitching, if you can live with it. But when you're going to get into the 3D, then we're going to get some issues. There's a little bit of a bummer in my opinion. But yeah, this is what you're going to get with most of these cheap boxes. Like I'm always saying, for the money, you can't complain. Okay, so next up, let's try some PlayStation 1. And I can say like most of these cheap boxes will run it pretty damn good. But it is most of the time on just a native resolution. I think it's not a big of a deal, but if you want to have more upscaled, let's say, resolutions, you just need to have a powerful box, and you cannot do that with a cheap device like this. But if you can live with this, it's just okay. Okay, so next up let's try some Atomic Wave. This is a system that has a lot of problems with some of the boxes. You can see like it will run just okay. Take consideration, three-dimensional games, same story like with PSP. It will have more problems. But for now you can see that it runs very well. And when we're going to progress in the stage, you will see some hiccups here and there, because it's really demanding. But the performance is an overall not bad when it comes to this game and this cheap box. I find it quite fascinating to see what they can crank out of this cheap box. Okay, so when it comes to Sega Dreamcast, this is not running on the Redream emulator, and the reason I'm saying Redream, because Redream is personally like one of my favorite emulators, because the compatibility with a lot of games is just superb. But it is not possible with this 3.9 MHz ALEC. Still, the performance and overall is not bad at all. You can see this game runs very well, and a lot of other games will too. But of course, we always have like hiccups, glitches, stuff like that. But when you like just going to deep dive into the game library, or you're going to add yourself games to it. But if you're thinking just to have a device that can play just all the old school 8-bit 16-bit games, a cheap box like this is just more than enough. You don't need a really expensive one that costs like a couple of $100, or you're going to get yourself, let's say, an Nvidia Shield that costs around $250. You don't need it at all. You can just use a cheap box like this. A lot of these games run just fine. It is more like if you want to play more the later systems, then we're going to need a beefy specs and a very powerful box that costs a lot of money. So within the video I switched to the Xbox 360 controller, because oh boy, I had a lot of issues when it comes to PlayStation Portable and the controller compatibility. Everything had been set configured correctly, but somehow my PlayStation 2 fake controller didn't work at all. No D-pad or analog stick, a little bit of a bummer, but I just wanted to point out these controllers are having a lot of issues. I don't like them at all. Okay guys, so let's take a close look in the inside. How does it look? How does the arcade box look? Because I'm curious. Is this thing exactly the same like the Super Console X? I would not be surprised it is. Yeah, these feet are really difficult to remove. Let's give it a try with a screwdriver. Yeah, that is number one. So the only thing I need to do is like remove the 3 screws, and then we can just basically pop it open. I think there are no like plastics clicks together. So let's gently remove these. Just want to reuse them after I'm done with this teardown. So let's do the last one over here. So it's kind of tricky. I still have a couple of them of these tiny rubbery feet laying around somewhere, but I don't want to destroy these. Okay, so let's remove the 3 Parkers. They didn't really tighten them up. Okay, so that's number 2. And let's remove number 3. And let's open up this bad boy. So the weird thing with these designs is like, there are some space between here, or like some cooling ventilation, but the weird thing is like you're putting the console like this, so the heat cannot escape. So it's kind of weird thing what they're doing over there. Somehow I think my screw is not loose yet. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, no it isn't, no it isn't. Red alert, it's not going great here. You can see the head has been clicked, so the screws have all been removed. I think we need to just be gentle with this. Just click it open. Yep, like that. I hope it didn't break anything. Nope. Phew. Alright, so this is what you're going to get in the inside. Is this thing loose or? Yep, it is. So basically we're going to get 2 plastic shells, 3 screws and some foam feet. It's not even rubber. So these are the main boards they are using. This is like old tech. So here you can see like it's indeed the S905. It's the old stuff that we have seen before. Look at the technology they are using, like the gigantic chips. You don't see them anymore like in later models. They did glue this sucker on, but it doesn't even matter. This is just this thing that we're going to get with the Super Console X. So basically this is just a Super Console X in a different form factor. Even removing part of the sticker. I don't know if there's a date on here that basically says like when this thing has been made, or did I just miss it out already? No, not really. It doesn't even matter because these things are like prehistoric old. And here see like it has 1 GB of RAM and 8 M8G. So I'm guessing this is something around 8 GB of internal storage. So yeah, that's what you're going to get with these things. Old stuff slapped in a box. Then we're going to get here the Wi-Fi antenna. It's old school, man. It's really old school. But nevertheless, this is what you're going to get in the inside. It's the box in this very cheap